In the last lesson, we talked about adding a play axis to a chart and what it looks like and how to go about designing it and choosing metrics. If you didn't watch that lesson, I'd encourage you to go back and watch that one to get some introduction. So we're going to build a play axis chart, and we'll start, as we often do, by bringing up a blank PowerView report. The first thing I'll do as I build this report is to add a filter to the background. So I'll just click the filters area. I'm going to limit this report to just 1 year. I'm going to choose 2011. Now I have data in 2011 from January until November. I don't have the complete year, and that's going to have an impact on how I design this report. And you'll see that impact in a minute. And next I'll get started with this chart. And the bubbles in the chart, as you remember, are the carrier. So I'll choose the carrier name. And the primary metric that I'm looking at is on-time flight percent. So I'll just go ahead and bring that into this table as well. I haven't converted this to a chart yet. And then as I look at this, I see it has a lot more airlines than I really want. So I'm going to add a table filter to this on the carrier name, and it still has too many. So what I'm going to do is limit that list before I even try to select my carriers by dragging in the US major and choosing yes, and that will have a happy effect of limiting this list, and now it makes it a lot easier for me to choose the carriers I want. So I'm going to choose just a few of these, some of the larger ones. So American, Continental, Delta, Southwest, and let's choose United, and we'll add one more, US Air. Okay, that's good. Now I have my flight percent and my carrier name. I don't want a table though. I want a scatter chart. So I'll click the scatter button here at the top, and that will create this kind of a view. And I'm going to make this really very large, even to cover the title, so you can see it better. So I do have a scatter chart, but you notice that the bubbles are all kind of scattered at the bottom. We have a bit more work to do here. And we talked in the last lesson about what to use on which axis, and along the x-axis I want to use something that's kind of cumulative, that doesn't tend to go down, it only goes up. And on-time flight percentage is definitely not that. But on the y-axis I do want to use something that tends to go up and down and has the same range for every bubble. On-time flight percent is perfect for that, so I'll drag that right to the y value, and you can see those will rotate up onto the y-axis. And then for the x-axis I need to choose a different metric, so I'm going to choose year-to-date flights. This is a metric that will increase over time and never goes down, so I'll get that nice kind of horse race effect as the bubbles will move across the screen from left to right. For the size of the bubbles, I'm going to use flight count. So I'll just drag that in. And now I get something that's starting to look like the visual that I want. And the last thing I need to add to this chart to make it look like the sample I showed you is something on the play axis. So for the play axis, I'm going to use the month name. I've already limited this report to 2011, and the month name will just give me a nice friendly labeling on the bottom. Now the report pretty much has the elements that I want. I have on-time flight percent on the y-axis, I have year-to-date flights on the x-axis, and the play axis is the month. And if I click on the play button, you can actually see this chart working in motion. But at the end you notice that everything kind of disappears. And that's accurate because there's no data in December, but it's a little bit disconcerting. Luckily, I can use a view filter to fix that. So I'm just going to close some of these up, and the month name is something I can choose a filter on. If I click all and then uncheck December, now it's ends in November, and that will clear up that little problem. So now as I look at this chart across time, I can see that in January, United Airlines had a 73% on-time percentage. Southwest, only 52%. And watch what happens to these bubbles over time. As the two of these airlines, United and Southwest, change position. And I can hit the play button and let that animate itself, and you can really get a sense of the improvement over time or the lack of improvement over time. And you can see all of the different metrics all at the same time, but in a way that's not overpowering. So that's our play axis, and as you can see, it's fairly easy to set up. Probably the complexity of it is just choosing which metrics work the best in which positions, because those choices that you make can make the difference between something that looks very consumable and natural or something that's a little rough around the edges. But just think through the metrics you're going to use and you can try different ones. But again, to summarize, try to get something on the x-axis that's cumulative, something on the y-axis that is maybe not so cumulative but has a range that constrains the bubbles that you're working with. And then on the play axis, normally you'll choose something like time, something that is natural to the user, that is the progression of something, so that as the bubbles move, it makes sense what they're actually doing.